Imagine creating like a piece of art that generates over $1 billion at the global box office.
Oh, yeah.
And it brings grown adults to tears of joy in the middle of a theater, right? But then simultaneously, it's being called painful, dumb, and a jingling set of keys by professional film
It
critics.
is such a bizarre paradox.
Right! That is the fascinating fault line of the Super Mario Brothers movie. Welcome to this deep dive, where our mission today is to take a massive stack of sources for you. I mean, we're talking harsh, critical reviews, thematic essays, exhaustive Easter egg guides, and distill them all down so you can really understand this phenomenon.
Yeah, because it's essentially a massive cultural disconnect. You have this towering financial success that is universally beloved by a very specific audience,
Yeah.
just sitting right next to a 54% on Rotten Tomatoes.
Which is wild. So we are going to walk through a spoiler-filled analysis of the story, unpack the surprisingly mature philosophy of the ending, and, give you a balanced look at why this movie split the world completely in half.
And honestly, the best way to think about this movie right off the bat is like a brand new theme park ride.
Oh, I like that analogy.
Yeah, I mean, it's incredibly fast, brightly colored, heavily built on nostalgia. And depending on who you ask, it's either the most fun you'll have all year or it's a bit too shallow for a second ride.
Exactly. So let's buckle up and see why. Because to really understand that critical divide, we have to map out exactly what happens in this 92-minute sprint.
Right, and it wastes absolutely no time. But what's crucial is that it doesn't start in some magical fantasy land. It starts in, well, Brooklyn.
Which is such a grounded place to start. I mean, think about how you'd feel if you took the biggest risk of your life and it just immediately blew up in your face.
Oh, it's the worst feeling.
Right, and that's exactly where we meet Mario and Luigi. We know them as these iconic heroes, but the movie frames them as, frankly, failing small business owners.
Yeah, they've quit their steady plumbing jobs to strike out on their own, and they are just sinking.
Totally. And their old boss, Foreman Spike, which, by the way, is a great nod to the 1985 game Wrecking Crew, is actively mocking them in public. And even worse, their own dad tells Mario he's, like, dragging his brother down.
Anchoring the story in that very relatable sense of failure is such a deliberate choice, you know? It makes the escapism that follows hit so much harder.
Oh, for sure.
They're desperate to prove their worth. So when this massive water main break threatens to flood all of Brooklyn, Mario sees it as their chance to finally be the heroes of their own neighborhood.
So they go down into the sewers to fix the pressure valve, but instead they stumble into a glowing green warp pipe.
And the moment they get sucked into that pipe, the cinematic language of the film just fractures in two.
Yeah, it's night and day.
Mario lands in the Mushroom Kingdom, which is this explosion of bright, saturated colors, upbeat music, friendly toads. But then the film immediately contrasts that by dropping Luigi into the Darklands.
Oh man, if you've ever played Luigi's Mansion, you know exactly that vibe.
Exactly. The color palette drops to these sickly greens and purples, the sound design gets super oppressive, and Luigi is instantly hunted and captured by Bowser.
Which establishes Bowser not just as a monster, but as an ideological foil to Mario. Because Bowser has conquered the Penguin Kingdom, he's stolen the Invincibility Superstar, and his motivation is incredibly specific.
Right, he wants to force Princess Peach to marry him. And if she says no, he will obliterate her kingdom. So he learns about Mario, views him as romantic competition, and uses Luigi as leverage.
Okay, let's pause on that dynamic for a second, because wait, isn't it usually Peach who gets kidnapped by Bowser? Why the switch?
It's a really smart update to those outdated tropes. By swapping Luigi into the damsel in distress role, the filmmakers give Princess Peach genuine agency.
Right, because she's a strategic leader now.
Exactly. As the ruler of a kingdom under threat, it makes total geopolitical sense that she would be a competent wartime protector, rather than just a passive victim waiting in a castle.
That makes a lot of sense.
But more importantly, putting Luigi in that cage centers the film's emotional core firmly on the brotherly bond.
Yeah, if Mario's is just trying to save a princess he's never even met, just because he has a crush on her, the stakes feel a bit hollow. But because his motivation is his desperate love for his terrified little brother, it grounds this massive IP in a really relatable family dynamic.
And Peach sees that determination in Mario.
Uh-huh.
She doesn't just hand him a weapon, she trains him. She builds this insane floating obstacle course and introduces him to power-ups, like the classic super mushroom.
Which he hates the taste of, by the way.
Yes. And she forces him to fail over and over again until he understands the physics of her world. Then they travel to the Jungle Kingdom to recruit the Kong army.
Which leads to that incredible arena fight against Donkey Kong. Mario has to win the respect of DK's father, Cranky Kong, and Mario gets absolutely thrashed initially. I mean, DK is massive.
He has brute strength, he has reach. Mario's just a guy from Brooklyn. But this is where the film uses game mechanics as actual storytelling tools.
Right, because Mario realizes he can't win a horizontal brawler fight against a gorilla.
Exactly, so he grabs a catsuit power-up from Super Mario 3D World.
Mechanically, the catsuit changes everything. He stops trying to punch DK and starts outmaneuvering him, using the arena's vertical environment against him. He wins the respect, and they get the Kong army.
And that victory leads directly into the road trip back to the Mushroom Kingdom. They build custom carts and hit Rainbow Road. But, it's an ambush. Bowser's army intercepts them.
Oh, if you've ever thrown a controller because of Mario Kart, you know what happens next. The Koopa General uses a blue shell to literally blow up the track.
It is devastating. The road shatters, the Kongs are captured, and Mario and DK plummet off the edge into the ocean, where they get swallowed by a mare.
That terrifying giant eel from Super Mario 64.
Yes. So Peach is left entirely alone. Bowser forces her into this wedding to save her people, but she's a strategist, so she sets a trap. At the altar, she pulls a hidden ice flower and freezes Bowser solid.
Well, simultaneously, Mario and DK escape the eel using hot-wired rocket barrels, and they crash the wedding ceremony. Total chaos erupts.
And then Bowser thaws out, furious. He launches a massive Banzai Bill missile directly at Peach's castle.
But Mario knocks it off course, right into the warp pipe. It detonates, and the vacuum sucks everyone, Bowser included, straight into the streets of Brooklyn.
Which brings us to the climax. Bowser is brutally beating Mario in the real world. Mario is broken. But then a broken TV screen plays their cheesy plumbing commercial, reminding him of his bond with Luigi.
And Luigi finally steps up. He blocks a blast of fire with a manhole cover. They grab the superstar together, become invincible, and absolutely defeat Bowser.
It's a great sequence. Bowser gets shrunk with a mini mushroom and trapped in a jar. Mario and Luigi are finally recognized as heroes by Brooklyn, by Spike, and most importantly, by their dad.
So standard Hollywood formula dictates they stay in Brooklyn, launch a successful business, and live happily ever after.
Right, but they don't. They relocate their entire lives to the Mushroom Kingdom.
And that climax isn't just about explosions in Brooklyn. Their final decision actually carries the movie's most surprisingly mature thematic message.
Let's unpack the philosophy here, because the analysts at Film Colossus broke this down brilliantly. Staying in Brooklyn